Hello and welcome to a very different looking game plan this week as we break down State of Origin Game 2. I'm Zac Bailey, joined remotely by Anthony Seibold. Siebes, you are a proud Queenslander. How did you feel sitting back and watching the Blues make it 2 from 2 and clinch this year's series?
Yeah, well, as a Queenslander, really disappointing not to get the result at Suncorp Stadium, but the Blues have been far too good over games 1 and 2, and I think it's now 76 points to 6 over the first 2 games. So clearly the better side, and they dominated last night again.
When we analysed game 1, it was all blue traffic from the very start of the game. Tom Trbojevic, James Tedesco, just absolutely on fire from that first set. But there was some promise for Queensland at Suncorp Stadium at the start of the game.
Yeah, I thought Queensland in particular started with a better intensity, and you'll see this in the first 3 or 4 plays of the game. I thought Christian Welch really made his presence felt early, and you can see that Daniel Sonafidi, that's Jai Arrow into the contest there. But what team's trying to do is chase the red line, and they try and have 3 tackles inside that 20-metre zone. So you can see there McCulloch and Welsh really rushing up, and I think they put some pressure from a physical perspective on the Blues early in the game. There's Junior Paulo again being lifted up and dragged back. So it was a much better start from a physical perspective. But as the half wore on, I thought New South Wales started to dominate from a physical point of view.
Yeah, a couple of Maroons greats have been scathing, in particular Fatty Vaughton, Paul Vaughton, about their inability to maintain that. Why do you think that was?
I think, particularly in the first half, New South Wales had superior possession rate. So I think, fatigued by the amount of defence Queensland had to do, it just really hurt them as the half wore on. And you saw that towards the back end of the half, McCulloch, Daly Evans both put the ball out into touch at different periods of time and on early tackles. So I think that was their way of trying to slow the momentum down of the Blues.
And speaking of momentum, one player that turned it in the Blues' favour early on was Latrell Mitchell. It was arguably his best ever game in Sky Blue.
Yeah, 3 really big plays in the first 18 or 19 minutes, which really turned the game. And it took that really physical start from the Maroons away from them. And, Latrell Mitchell, again, came up with an enormous play off the back of an aggressive kick chase. And you can see here the momentum that it swung in the Blues' favour. So obviously there's Latrell down there on Kyle Feldt, and that's just his manhandled Kyle Feldt there. And essentially what the Blues do from there, I was really impressed with their transition. They go 1 into a field position here with Daniel Sonafidi off the back of Damien Cook, and then they dive straight into their attacking shape. So again, relatively early in the game, and what you'll see from the Queensland side is a very tight, narrow line. So there's Christian Welch all the way through to Kirk Catewell. It's a very narrow line. There's a couple of players I do want to point out, and that being Andrew McCulloch. Andrew McCulloch's there as a 4-in defender, and he doesn't normally defend in that position. You'll see that Jai Arrow next to him on his left-hand side is defending as a 3-in defender. Now, we also know at club level that Kirk Catewell defends on the other edge of the field and plays as a back row. So normally he defends as a 4-in defender, and they're really tight. It's a very narrow line there. And as you can see from the Blues team there, Cleary's able to, dig all the way into the line, and fantastic execution there by the Blues team to put Addo Carr into the corner. So that was on the back of Latrell, stealing the ball off Kyle Feldt. This was another really big play not too long later. Des Tarek Sims on the kick chase, but Latrell gets Valentine Holmes, and he lifts him up off the floor without the tackle being made. And this is a big play because you're talking about why did Queensland lose that, edge with regards to their physical start. Well, it was off the back of repeated tackles. So that was another set of 6. And this is a really big play from Latrell Mitchell. If Valentine Holmes executes the play, Queensland score in the right-hand side corner for them. But Latrell got himself in between Valentine Holmes and the right edge for the Maroons side. And it's a big play. And, that made it 12-0. After a pretty physical start from the Maroons side, but it took a lot of gas out of them, those 2 big plays, or 3 big plays.
Do you think after that the Maroons' heads just went down, especially with that intercept play? Because, as you said, that if that pass lands for the Maroons, it's try time for them.
Yeah, it's a big turnaround. Like, obviously, they come out. They're always going to come out really hard and play fast to start with and play from a physical point of view, the Queenslanders at Suncorp Stadium. But, I just think that it took the gas out of their start. As I said, 3 really big plays the first try there, Latrell, with the pinch. But then, as I said before, even that play of Valentine Holmes being dragged back across the try line for the Maroons, they didn't score points then, but what it did do, it put fatigue into the Maroons side. So when you have fatigue into a team, particularly a forward pack, your kick chase drops off, your energy in and around getting three defenders in the tackle does certainly drop off, and it appeared to drop off after that first 20 or 25 minutes.
Seems in game one, Brian To'o was the biggest beneficiary when New South Wales went left. He scored a couple of tries in Townsville. But what did you notice about their attacking ways and their game plan in game two?
Yeah, they favoured their right-hand side edge attack a lot more in this particular game. And I felt as though the tactics just reversed from the left-hand edge in the first game to the right-hand edge. And you can see a couple of examples here. Essentially what the Blues did was they got the forward defender for the Queensland team. So you'll see there's Fafita in the tackle along with Cameron Munster. So there's a forward defender and a three-in defender inside that tackle. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to get up the keep going side with Nathan Cleary in the next play. And he asked a lot of questions there. So really good pass there to Tommy Trbojevic. Obviously, Cameron Murray drops the pass there, but that was a real blueprint. You can see this time here's Jai Arrow defending as a four-in defender there, and beside him is Cameron Munster, the three-in defender. So again, what the Blues did, they got those two defenders inside the tackle there. You'll see the 11 in Arrow and the 6 in Munster. And again, you'll see Cleary dive up that short side of the keep going side. And because of Tommy Trebojevic's presence, you can see Kurt Catewell here in the instance. He's only got eyes for Tom. And it allows Cleary and that right edge to have a field day, and they go away and nail this particular play. So there's Cleary as show and go. Again, Tedesco gets taken there by Christian Walsh. It could have been another try, but they've assisted with going to the right-hand side. That was one thing that I noticed. And the left-hand side edge for the Maroons side in Cameron Munster, Kurt Catewell, and Xavier Coates, they come up with 16 missed tackles between those three defenders. So it was a big tactic, obviously, in game one on their left-hand side. Well, again, it was a really important tactic in making some inroads and creating momentum in game two.
It was a smart game plan, and do you think it was purely because the Blues would have known that the Maroons were ready for that barrage down the left, like they, in game one?
Yeah, I feel as though that would have been, one of the things. I think, Kurt Catewell, he's a very, very good player, but he is defending out of position there on the left-hand side as a two-in defender. I think, they would have thought that Queensland would overload defenders on the Queensland right-hand side of the field, and they changed up, which way, or the direction that they went. And, as I said, it's a really simple game plan, getting the four-in defender and three-in defender involved in the tackle, but it worked really well in games one and games two. And they didn't always score tries, from those raids down the short sides. But what they did was they created momentum. And again, a lot of the big forwards had to chase back off the back of, half line breaks or missed tackles from the left edge there of the Queensland team.
So the Blues have three fullbacks in their team, Latrell Mitchell, Tom Trbojevic. They were massive in game one, awesome a game in game two. But James Tedesco, he was the best of the best.
He was a handful. He made 234 metres, but also broke 10 tackles. That's a significant amount, so his impact on the game was really special. But he also came up with some really good passes as well, Zach, and I'm really impressed with James Tedesco's improvement in that area of his game. But again, you'll see him skip across defenders here, and he does it quite easily. But again, focuses on a little short pass there, and Cameron Murray again gets through the tackle of Xavier Coates. Now, once Tom Trbojevic and Josh Adokar link up on that right-hand side edge, they've got great speed and tackle-breaking ability. So it was always going to be hard for the Maroons to scramble with their D there. But again, you saw Tedesco skip across defenders and good little pass there on the right-hand side. And Murray, Trbojevic and Josh Adokar nailed it. Well, this is towards the end of the game. In actual fact, the only try that the Blues scored in the second half. And you'll see, again, Tedesco be a real part of it. Obviously, putting Liam Martin in between Catewell and also Cameron Munster. And, I think a little bit of deception here from James Tedesco, looked to his left-hand side, but then came right. And he came up with a fantastic pass. Again, Xavier Coates tried to go for the intercept rather than defend the attacking player. And, Josh Adokar obviously finished it very effectively. But, if I take it back a little bit, Zac, this is a special play from Tedesco. As you see, it's almost like the Matt Gidley, the ex-Newcastle Knights centre flick pass. He skips across defenders. Dave Fafita goes low, and close to the line like that, you would want David to go a little bit higher, but that's a special pass and a special finish by Josh Adokar in the right-hand side corner for the Blues.
Yeah, Xavier Coates coming up with fresh air there, given the class of James Tedesco. What about the Maroons' game plan to continually bomb Brian To'o, despite him being one of the Blues' best in Game 1?
Yeah, well, the back five for the Blues, in Game 2 ran for over 200 metres. And, Tohu was an outstanding performer in Game 1, as you said. I think what they wanted to try and do was take away his, tackle 1 and tackle 2 carries off the back of a kick chase. So they were putting the ball on him, and there was a lot of examples, particularly in the second half. Now, in the second half, I felt as though Queensland were really competitive with regards to getting some field position, getting some possession. You'll see putting the ball on Brian Tohu's head, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to stand him still. So you'll see here, there he is underneath the footy. They're trying to stand him still and have the aggressive right-hand side kick chase come down from the Queensland side. But what it does, it takes him away from the rest of the set. So obviously he gets nailed there by the chasing team of Kyle Felt and Dane Gagai. Here again, what they're trying to do, they're trying to put that pressure and a contest on Brian Tohu with regards to Kyle Felt, who's been very good in the air for a long period of time. So there you see Tohu again in the left-hand side corner for the Blues, and they're trying to get a contest. They're trying to get the chasing players, particularly Kyle Felt, into the contest to try and score some points. So I did think the end of sets for Queensland were much more effective, particularly in the second half. There you see Cherry Evans again trying to land the ball right on top there of Brian Tohu, and again trying to get the kick chase side for the other Maroon side into that contest. And he did a pretty fair job, Tohu, but it did take his carries out, of the +1, +2 carries. Again, there's a tactic, a little bit long in the kick, but they were shandy away there of scoring a try. And even towards the back end of the game, they just persisted with it. So they put a lot of pressure on Tohu, and they come up with a mistake. He comes up with a mistake there, which gave the Maroons possession. But I thought their kicking game and end of set execution was a lot better, Zac, in the second half in particular.
All right, so why weren't they able to turn that into points? It was 18-0 down at half-time. They couldn't score a point the whole match. But as you mentioned, field position, possession were all in their favour. Yeah, and it was really, it was really in their favour in so many ways. They had 42 play the balls inside the Blues 20-metre zone, and in comparison, the New South Wales Blues team only had 17 play the balls in the Queensland 20-metre zone. So, as you suggest, possession ended up being pretty even at the end of the game. I think it was, marginally in the Blues' favour, but in the second half, the Queensland side had a lot of possession, had a lot of field position, and as I said, 42 play the balls versus 17 play the balls to the Blues inside 20-metre zone is a significant, it's a significant amount. So they had enough possession. I just thought they were quite clunky at different times, but the two times they did get over the try line, the Blues come up with some fantastic try-saving tackles. You'll see here, this is a shape not unlike what Munster runs for the Melbourne Storm team. He had a back row drop underneath him and had a lead runner inside the two-man. You'll see Tom Trbojevic comes across. Adokar made his decision early. Tom Trbojevic comes across, knocks the arm of Xavier Coates as he goes into the corner. And, that's a big play. We showed Yo in the last, couple of minutes of game one, coming up with a try-saving tackle. Well, this was a fantastic, try-saving tackle. It's a big origin play. You can see Tom's arm there, knocking the ball out of Xavier Coates' hands. And the second try-saving tackle was this one here, again, kicking in behind Brian Tohu this time. There's Kyle Felt, but Brian Tohu found a way. He didn't let up on the play. He found a way, rakes the ball there at the death, and saves a certain four-pointer there for the Maroons side. So they had field position. They did cross the line a couple of times, Zac. I think the Blues' scramble defence, though, was superb. And you're talking about some of the great origin performances or great origin defensive performances over the 40 years that Origin's been around, then it'd be hard to come up with a better defensive performance than game one and game two from the Blues team. To only concede 6 points over
160 minutes of footy is a very impressive effort.
Seibs, what's happened? It was always the Maroons that were pulling off those big Origin plays, but now it's completely turned in the Blues' favour. You mentioned there Maroons have only scored 6 points. What's more concerning for Paul Green's side, the inability to score points or the fact they've conceded 76?
Oh, it would be the fact that they've conceded 76 points in the first two games. They missed 52 tackles in game one, the Queensland side. It was 46, I think, in game two. So it's over 100 missed tackles in games 1 and 2. And that's a significant amount. In an NRL game, you try and keep the missed tackles under 25 tackles. That would be a pass mark. So to concede over, or miss over 100 tackles in the first two games is significant, and it's almost one a minute, in a lot of ways. So it's really challenging for the Maroons side to build pressure on the other side of the footy when they're putting themselves under pressure with their defence. There's 7 line breaks to 1 last night. So a lot of those are system errors and a lot of them are missed tackles. So I would be really focused on defence for game 3. And I'm sure Paul Green would have leading the game too, but the Blues again ran with a lot of aggression and asked a lot of questions, and the Maroons weren't good enough.
Okay, finally, just on that, looking ahead to game 3, is there any hope for the Maroons? What can they do to stop this Blues and this blue wave? They've got so many stars across the park.
Well, Queensland don't have great depth at the moment, Zach. I think that's one thing. If you look at the Queensland-based NRL teams, they've had some challenges, this season. I think Kalen Ponga and Harry Grant, would be big additions to the Queensland side of game 3. Hopefully Kalen gets up for the Knights this weekend, and Harry Grant's probably still another week or so away from what I understand for the Melbourne Storm team. But hopefully they're both available because they're big ins. They're both very classy players, and talk about trying to improve the attacking side of things. They'll certainly do that. Will they improve their defence? Well, they need a lot of other players around them to do their jobs as well. But there's not great depth, particularly at centre. I would look at bringing Will Chambers in. I've had a good close look at him over the last few weeks for Cronulla. He's a competitor whose defence is probably the weapon in his game, and I would look at moving Catewell back into the as an edge back rower as well. So I think there are some things that Queensland can do, but we don't have great depth at the moment, which is concerning going forward.
Seibs, as always, thank you so much for your analysis. It's a bit different this week, but these are the times we live in. Best of luck for the Maroons and the Blues in game 3.
Good on you, Zach. Cheers, mate.